Most people don't realize this, but there's a legal way to move your 401k into real estate without triggering taxes or penalties. Ryan, how do we do this?
Well, hey, I love that. Here's the thing that I would look at. 401k, Ken, I think that's like the thing. Everyone's told, put your money in a 401k. That's step number one. And, the challenging part, while you're still employed, your 401k is going to be limited to whatever your employer is going to offer you. But when most people get to the point of transferring jobs or even retirement, they have access now to self-direct their 401k.
Correct.
Once you get in a self-directed account, you become the author, you become the controller of where that money's allocated and what it's now going to do for you.
And you could move it without penalty, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Everything stays tax deferred, right? And so I think that's really the first step is at some point in your financial plan, you have to take more control. Even if your money's in a tax-deferred account, maybe you work, you get the company match, you do what you got to do to keep the thing funded today, but at some point you want to take more control over that account. We
have a lot of investors, as you know, and it's interesting to me because they don't know this, right? They have a bunch of money sitting in these accounts, and what happens is people just open the statement, or they don't open the statement. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like put it on the shelf.
Just kind of, because what are you going to do? Yeah. Just look at it, And so, but anyway, when you move it to a self-directed, first of all, whoever you're moving it from, they're usually not very happy. No. They make it really hard. It can take months, it can take weeks, but I've seen it take quite a while sometimes.
I think that's an interesting point. Why are they, the people you're moving it from, why are they not happy?
They're not happy because they make fees on it.
That's always, like when I first learned that, that's probably one of the things that made me more angry than anything about the traditional financial system is to know that someone is skimming right off the top, taking money whether I win, lose, or draw. And when I really look behind the surface to understand, okay, are they just better investors than me? Do they have some insider tips that I don't have? They're salesmen.
Yeah.
Right? They're just selling you a mutual fund or brokerage account, and most research indicates that they can't even beat market averages.
I know. It's really, really interesting to me because if you move it to a self-directed, it's basically just moving it to another bank account that you control. Now, there is an annual fee, I think a custodial fee, but they're usually under $1,000. Yeah, they're like less than $1,000 or whatever. But now you're in control of your money, right?
Yep, 100%.
There are some restrictions, though.
There are restrictions, and you can get around or through most of those restrictions with a little bit of due diligence. But once your money's in a self-directed account, now the world opens up to you.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing then to start looking at is, doing what you do. How can I back my dollars with a real asset? How can I get real growth, real predictability, and then knowing how to balance my tax buckets, what I call it in retirement, is probably the key. If I can build some tax-deferred wealth and some tax-free wealth with some ownership, I can then retire in a lower tax bracket. I can have my tax-free income offsetting my tax-deferred taxes and actually pull myself down into a lower tax bracket.
That's right. And I'll tell you, it just, when you have access to your own money, which sounds odd.
It's weird, isn't it?
But there's a lot of potential because I know personally in my retirement accounts, because I use retirement accounts for tax planning as well. There are some restrictions on where I can put my own money, which is interesting to me, but whatever. So I use that to invest in other people's deals.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. So, like, we have a mastermind called the Collective Inner Circle, and we have some guys in there that are apartment guys from the Midwest. And so I used my retirement account that's in a self-directed to invest into their deals.
I love that. That's actually phenomenal. I didn't know that you were invested in other people's deals.
A lot of them. Yeah.
That's really, and you mentioned this in a couple of your books, that you have to become a focused expert, right? With the more focus you have, the more expertise you can develop. And I think that's the key, because I've invested in some of your deals, right?
Yeah, I know.
And I'm not good at the multifamily, the syndication model. And so when I do want some more passive income, then I just go to the people that have the expertise in that area.
That's right.
But I think the biggest thing that we try to help people understand is begin with the end in mind, right? Stephen Covey. And if we begin in the end with the end in mind, at some point we all know, no matter where our money's at, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in a tax-deferred account, whether it's I own some real estate, it all comes down to how much income, at what tax rate is that income going to be taxed at.
Correct.
And if you can optimize your buckets, right? If you could know, hey, what if I have $400,000, $500,000 in a tax-deferred account? If I'm taking 7 or 8% out every single year out of that account, with normal tax deductions in retirement, I can offset the majority of the taxes.
Correct.
And if the rest of my income is now coming from tax-free accounts, I can win in both worlds. I can get a tax deduction for putting money in a tax-deferred account, take it out tax-free because of deductions, and then supplement my income where it's not all coming from tax-deferred accounts. Now some of it's coming from tax-free
Right.
accounts.
Yeah. You need to have a mix.
You do.
Right.
And I think that's optimal tax planning, right? Is when you start with the end in mind. Because I think most people just start saying, that's what everyone else is doing. I'm going to put my money in a 401k. But they don't really consider, how is this going to generate income for me?
Gold is near all-time highs, but appreciation isn't the only way to benefit. Monetary Metals, you could potentially earn a yield on your gold, paid in physical gold, without selling it. Here's how it works. When you lease your gold through their platform, pre-qualified companies pay to use it under strict guidelines, like renting out real estate, but with gold. Instead of paying to store your metal, you may earn up to 4% annually in gold. You stay in control, and you can choose which leases to participate in. Monetary Metals handles the due diligence, lease terms, and all the administration. Thousands of investors use this approach to grow their gold, not just sit on it. Visit monetary-metals.com/Ken to learn more. Leasing gold involves risk, and returns are not guaranteed. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities. Please review all risk disclosures at monetary-metals.com. Visit monetary-metals.com/Ken to learn more.
Well, right. I think most people don't know how to even ask questions about where their 401k money is.
Yeah.
So it gets invested for you, and that's actually the travesty, in my opinion, because let's don't forget about that. Let's don't forget that you're also taking ownership of your money instead of handing it over to someone else.
You know, Ken, I think that really is the key. I mean, you hit the word right on the nail right on the head. It's ownership.
Yeah.
If you want to be financially free, I don't believe there's any other way than taking ownership over your money. That doesn't mean you have to control every aspect of it, but you have ownership over where it's going, what it's producing, how it's producing, what your financial plan looks like, your tax structure. You have to take ownership. Otherwise, you get left with someone else is taking ownership over your money and your results.
Right. And it's very interesting to me. I have family members that work really, really hard in government jobs, and they put a bunch of money away, and they don't really know, and I don't think a lot of people know, like what it's really invested in, because it might be, it's named, it's branded some kind of fund or some kind of, it's a conglomeration of all these small interests and all these things. And I'm not actually saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just saying you don't even know what you're invested in.
I think that was the first step that I took. Once I decided to take ownership, I started looking into my 401k, because that's all I had back in the day was a 401k, max funded, got my company sponsored match. And I remember when I looked at that, I didn't know what my money was in. And if it wasn't those things, I didn't know why. And I remember when I sat down to go reallocate my assets, they just gave me a chart. And it had all these fund
The pie chart,
the pie chart.
I know.
And it's like, choose the one. And I'm like, well, what's the difference between the one that has the biggest numbers and the one that has the smallest numbers? And no one could tell me.
I'll tell you a funny story. This is back when I used to do the same thing. You get that call from that wealth manager, right? Once a year, maybe. And by this point, I'm really going deep on gold and silver. Like I'm like really studying it. I've invested in it physically. He calls me, and he's like, I think you should do gold and silver. I go, oh, okay, tell me about that. He's like, well, there's this ETF. I go, no, right? And so now I'm having I go, well, why do you think I should be in an ETF versus physical gold? At this point, I really understand. And he was backpedaling. Obviously, he just wanted a fee.
Totally.
So I ended up, obviously not doing it. But what happens is they're incentivized with certain things, and that's actually where your money goes.
Do you remember when I used to joke about this? Do you remember when iPhones first came out?
Yeah.
And when iPhones first came out and they were advertising, there was an app. If you wanted to go from point A to point B, there's an app for that. If you wanted to manage your bank account, there's an app for that. And the way I joke about Wall Street now is no matter what you want, if you say you want real estate, if you say you want gold and silver, if you say you want, growth, there's a fund for that, right?
I know.
And when it comes down to it, it's like that isn't necessarily always ownership. That's still someone else charging you a fee for having your money in things that they don't control.
And it's paper.
It's
made up. It's actually not physical gold.
It's not physical gold. And so you're defying, like if you think you own gold, but it's in a paper, collateral position on gold, you don't really own gold.
No.
You're just in a fund that owns gold.
I know. So that's why I always tell people, I go, you can own gold, the physical gold where you actually can carry it with you.
Yep.
And then, or you can own an ownership in a gold company.
Yep.
Or you can own shares like they do if they go public or something like that. You're basically, I think that's the most risky.
I do
is
too.
Paper assets.
Yeah, because when it really comes down to it, if you own an asset, something like gold especially, gold isn't getting more valuable. Gold is gold. It's just that the dollar's getting less, powerful. It's getting less valuable.
Right.
So when you own the asset of gold, you now own the benefits.
Yeah,
of that
I would
asset.
rather own the asset and have somebody else own the shares.
I agree,
You're
100%,
right.
man, 100%. So I think for me, bottom line on all of this is, and I think you already hit the nail on the head. It's ask questions. Become an owner.
Yeah, right. And you should. You can incrementally grow that with the right decisions, right?
You can.
And that's the thing. You're just putting it away. And like I was saying, some of my family members, they don't know. They just look at their quarterly statements and meet with their wealth advisor once a year. But my sister, on the other hand, she took actual ownership, right? And she's crushed it just by just bypassing all Wall Street. I'm not saying you shouldn't invest in Wall Street, but I think that you should be active at least in it.
Well, at least, probably with your sister's position, take a foundation. Like if you have a foundation of assets that you control, that becomes something that you have direct impact on.
Correct.
You can achieve results faster.
And watch them both.
You can watch them both. And then if you want something a little bit more passive, you can have money in Wall Street, or maybe, that's why I sent money your way. I'm like, let's Ken do the work on the syndication.
Yeah.
And I'll just get the passive income from that.
Well, the difference is with what you did, though, is you're on title.
Yeah, on title.
You're a limited partner inside of a deal. You can walk in and say, I'm an ownership of this actual physical building.
100%. And I think that takes it one step further.
Yeah.
You still you've backed your investment that you don't have control over with ownership in the assets.
Right, that's right. Okay, so what's a step-by-step plan? What's the first step somebody can make?
Okay, I love that. So for me, anytime it comes down to a step-by-step plan, you have to define the win. You have to start with the end in mind. So let's say step number one is you want to retire. Figure out when you want to retire and how much income you want from your retirement assets. That's step one. Step two is then come back and figure out, okay, where is my money currently positioned? Is 80% of my wealth in a tax-deferred account? If so, you're taking probably one of your biggest liabilities to the thing you're prepping for right now, which is retirement. You want a future stream of income. So if it is, if the majority of your money is in a tax-deferred account, what you need to start doing is you need to start counterbalancing and utilizing all three tax buckets. There's the taxable bucket, there's the tax-deferred bucket, and there's the tax-free bucket. So you want your income stream in the future to be optimized with some money coming tax-deferred, some money coming tax-free. Then step three is, and this is probably a little bit more advanced than we can give on this video, there are some specific calculations you can run to say how much income should be in my tax-deferred bucket so I can take it out in a lower tax bracket. And when you take it out in a lower tax bracket, it's understanding the deductions that are available to you when you retire. And that's a function of what you own, standard deductions, anything that you can put on your tax return to say, even though I'm getting this much income, I don't pay taxes because of the deductions.
Right.
Once you have those kind of three components figured out, what do I want, where am I at, and how do I counterbalance my tax deferred, then you can just start filling up your buckets to say, I need to get 50% of my assets in tax-free and 50% in tax-deferred.
Right. And I know when I did it, I just went online and said, where's a self-directed company?
Yeah.
And that does handle self-directed IRAs. And there were, I don't know, 10 or something. And then I just started calling and finding out what the fees were. And then I set up an account, and then I just transferred money in.
Yep.
It's really that easy.
Man, having your money in a self-directed IRA is phenomenal because then you do get to step into control. And my favorite part about that is when I learned that no one is skimming off the top anymore. Right now, I'm paying an annual filing fee, but all my gains are mine to own.
Yeah, that's why they call it self-directed. Once you get the money away from Wall Street, now you can direct it yourself, essentially.